it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
In Caitlin's game that night against the Phoenix Mercury player Alyssa Thomas lodged her fist into Caitlin's neck in a play where no foul was called during the game.
Yeah, she uses her body.
What would happen if one of the greatest basketball players ever saw the WNBA's most talented young athlete being singled out through questionable methods? You're going to find out because Cheryl Miller's shocking comments about Alyssa Thomas's behavior against Caitlin Clark have utterly upended the basketball world. But first, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a professional athlete subjected to the kind of discrimination that Caitlin Clark has experienced during her career? What Cheryl Miller witnessed during the Phoenix Mercury game has fundamentally altered her view of the WNBA. Alyssa Thomas is devastated by this aspect of Cheryl Miller's perspective. Caitlin Clark is exactly where Cheryl Miller is at this moment. Cheryl Miller was the top player in a league full of incredible athletes in the 1982 to 1986, and opponents tried to physically intimidate her since they couldn't match her extraordinary basketball IQ. But Cheryl Miller emphasized this crucial point. The reputation of Alyssa Thomas gets interesting at this point. Cheryl Miller understands the difference between what she has experienced with Clark and what she has seen in competitive basketball at the championship level. In her words, "It was the most cowardly act I've seen on a basketball court in decades." You heard properly. Yes.
There seems to be something involving this girl, and there's an elevated level of physicality that obviously compromised her availability last season where she missed a few games. There is a palpable resentment towards this girl, where you have people who are resenting of her star power and her cachet, and as a result, if they have an opportunity to go at her, they're going to take it. Now, Caitlin Clark is no innocent bystander in all.
When Cheryl Miller viewed the footage of Alyssa Thomas shoving Clark from behind while she was trying to deal with getting stabbed in the eye, she reacted violently and quickly. One of the few individuals in basketball history who genuinely understood what pure competitive fire looked like was this woman who battled well-known opponents throughout her illustrious career. But even she could understand that Alyssa Thomas's behavior was inappropriate in terms of sportsmanship and competitive integrity. But listen to what Cheryl Miller has to say about that shove's timing. Alyssa Thomas is currently utterly heartbroken by her realization. Before we continue, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's return to the narrative. The basketball star raised an issue that many fans have been thinking about, but nobody with her level of notoriety had the guts to do it. Taking cheap shots at someone while they're completely exposed and not looking is not the same as playing championship-level defense. Cheryl Miller emphasized that her time was considered to be among the most physically taxing periods in the history of women's basketball. When you disagreed with someone, you didn't wait for their back to turn before acting like a predator. Instead, you faced them like a warrior. And that's exactly what Cheryl Miller found so repugnant about Alyssa Thomas's despicable actions. But right now, Cheryl Miller's remarks have completely destroyed Alyssa Thomas's reputation. Alyssa Thomas's pathetic reaction after the incident particularly infuriated the basketball icon. Instead of acknowledging that she might have gone too far or expressing regret, Alyssa Thomas falsely claimed that fans and the media were unfairly condemning her. "Damned if I do, damned if I don't," she said. But after hearing such comments, Cheryl Miller became even more furious. Cheryl Miller claims that the game's champions and legends, truly outstanding competitors, always take full responsibility for their actions, especially when those actions could put another player in grave risk. She said she was reminded of athletes who secretly knew they couldn't compete at the highest level when she saw Alyssa Thomas play the victim and avoid criticism. As a result, they found more questionable ways to affect the game. In other words, because Alyssa Thomas lacks the actual basketball skills to match greater potential, Cheryl Miller was successful in portraying her as a substandard player who employs unethical tactics. At this moment, Caitlin Clark's remarkable qualities are highlighted by Cheryl Miller's analysis, which truly shines. Clark possesses the same unique qualities that made her one of the greatest basketball players in history, according to Cheryl Miller. An exceptional basketball IQ, unexplained clutch shooting ability, and above all, a divine vision to improve everyone around her. But as someone who respects basketball ethics, she also observes something that really concerns her. This incredibly talented young athlete must constantly be on the watch for cheap shots and dirty tricks, rather than focusing only on fulfilling her boundless basketball potential. Cheryl Miller claims that Alyssa Thomas's approach represents all that is wrong with certain players' choice to play Clark instead of pushing themselves to match her exceptional skill level or outwork her on the court by dedication and preparation. It is concerning that she is physically assaulted when she is at her weakest. According to Cheryl Miller, this behavior is the worst basketball competition she has ever seen. But as a result, the basketball community was talking about Cheryl Miller's contentious comments. Cheryl Miller compared Clark's predicament to her own work experiences with physical intimidation. She did not, however, hesitate to call attention to anything that uplifts Clark and appropriately contextualizes her situation. She pointed out that Clark, who is only 22 years old, is going through far more adversity than the majority of athletes go through in their lives. She is also carrying the weight of being the unchallenged face of women's basketball. But Cheryl Miller's remark about Alyssa Thomas's future in the league, which is currently making the rounds on social media, is absurd. Cheryl Miller claims that if the WNBA allows girls like Alyssa Thomas to chase superstars without facing repercussions, it sends the message that mediocre players can use unethical tactics to remain relevant rather than improving their actual basketball talents. She claims that this creates a dangerous precedent that can deter players who are lifting the bar for the league. Cheryl Miller even went so far as to claim that the league's failure to adequately sanction these acts deceives young players who watch at home. Instead of teaching kids how to pick bad opponents, she believes that watching the WNBA should teach them about skill, commitment, and sportsmanship. But perhaps the most significant part of Cheryl Miller's entire presentation was her prediction regarding Clark's future. Despite these challenges, she asserted that Clark was molded by adversity and that every cheap shot, shady move, and attempt to scare her only made her more determined to prove her superiority by skill alone. Cheryl Miller compared Clark's situation to her own rookie campaign when opponents constantly tested her physical endurance. She pointed out that the distinction is that Clark is coping with this behavior in addition to the unheard-of media attention and demands that come with being the most marketable player in WNBA history. For this reason, Cheryl Miller's backing of Clark is essential. She is defending more than just a gifted athlete. She is protecting basketball's fundamental purity. From her point of view, Caitlin Elizabeth Clark embodies all the qualities that make basketball special, such as talent, vision, class, and competitiveness. She also sees everything that may be detrimental to the sport in players like Alyssa Thomas. The seasoned basketball player made it clear that the WNBA is at a pivotal moment. They have two options. Either they keep allowing weaker players to use dishonest techniques to stay relevant, or they protect and spotlight their best players, enabling guys like Clark to reach their full potential and improve the league as a whole. Cheryl Miller's message was clear. The league's future will depend on the choice selected, but this is the question that everyone is discussing. Will the WNBA follow Cheryl Miller's recommendation to protect Caitlin Clark, or will they continue to allow athletes like Alyssa Thomas to harm the league's reputation through questionable methods? Let's continue the conversation in the space provided for comments below. What are your thoughts on Cheryl Miller's harsh criticism of Alyssa Thomas's behavior? Do you think she's being too critical, or do you think her objections are totally legitimate? More importantly, do you believe the WNBA will eventually move to protect its biggest star? Kindly provide your thoughts in the space provided for comments below. I read every single one of them. If you want to see more analysis like this that breaks through the clutter and explains what's truly happening in basketball, be sure to click the subscribe button and enable the notification bell. Cheryl Miller's contentious comments may potentially affect Caitlin Clark's circumstances in the WNBA. The basketball community is monitoring this issue. One thing gets harder to overlook as this story progresses. Discussions are no longer restricted to a single game, a single harsh foul, or a single contentious incident. It has to do with women's basketball's future, the standards the league hopes to maintain, and how its top players are handled when they are in the public eye. Before joining the WNBA, Caitlin Clark had to deal with expectations that few athletes have ever had to deal with. Millions of fans watch every game she plays. Every action she does is examined from every perspective. Every achievement is honored and every failure attracts media coverage. That's what it means to be among the most well-known figures in modern basketball. In the meantime, veterans from all throughout the league are still competing at the top level, bringing pride, perseverance, and years of experience to every game. The WNBA wants to make sure that intense competitiveness never turns into needless or risky play. Fans demand intensity. They seek rivalries. They are looking for real basketball. However, they also desire stability, equity, and respect. Because Cheryl Miller is someone who knows what it's like to perform under pressure. Her remarks have generated intense discussion. Cheryl Miller faced some of the hardest opponents and defenders women's basketball has ever seen during her incredible career. However, her message went beyond just being tough. It was about upholding the game's integrity and ensuring that basketball skill rather than controversy remains the major focus. There is little doubting that Cheryl Miller's remarks have sparked debate. Regardless of whether you fully concur with her viewpoint or think the circumstances have been overstated. What should happen when the league's best players become the center of physical play is still up for dispute among fans, experts, former players, and media figures. Do authorities need to be more stringent? Should the league impose more severe sanctions? Or is this just a typical aspect of playing basketball professionally? Everybody seems to respond in a different way. Caitlin Clark's response is unquestionable. She has persisted in concentrating on basketball rather than allowing controversy, physical defense, or criticism to define her career. She continues to compete, show up, and demonstrate why so many people think she is the sport's future. Her perseverance is one of the primary reasons her followers continue to support her. The WNBA is receiving unprecedented attention. Television ratings are rising, arenas are crowded, social media conversations are growing every day, and new fans are discovering women's basketball for the first time. These kinds of situations affect not just a single player or team, but also the league's perception around the world. As the season goes on, each game will become much more vital. Every game Caitlin Clark participates in will be closely watched. Every controversial play will be analyzed. Every official ruling will be contested. Every game will also add to the narrative of one of the most talked about seasons in WNBA history. The most crucial question is now yours. Do you believe Cheryl Miller's comments truly reflect the league's present situation? Do you believe the WNBA is protecting its players sufficiently while permitting aggressive competitive basketball? What future effects do you believe this whole situation will have on Caitlin Clark, Alyssa Thomas, and the league? Please express your opinions in the space provided for comments below. I sincerely want to know what basketball lovers around the world think. Your point of view may be featured in a future movie. And civil discourse is what makes our community so amazing. If you like this discussion and want more in-depth basketball analysis, exclusive updates, and the biggest stories about the WNBA, NBA legends, and Caitlin Clark, be sure to click the subscribe button, enable notifications, and never miss another upload. We are grateful for your support. Thank you for watching, and remember that every night we write the history of basketball. This is where you'll find out about the next chapter, which might be even more important than this one. To ensure you don't miss anything, please share your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe and enable all notifications so you don't miss anything. We'll see you in the next one after you click the video on the screen.